The Atlanta Falcons just finished a pretty convincing win against the Minnesota Vikings, and this was a game throughout the entire 60 minutes where the Atlanta Falcons were either taking the ball away from JJ McCarthy, either through the two interceptions or the forced fumble. They were sacking JJ McCarthy, or they just really were not letting up much to JJ McCarthy in this offense. Outside of the deep shot to Justin Jefferson to end the first half, I don't know if Minnesota had any plays inside of Atlanta Falcons territory past that point. And this was really a game where Atlanta came into this with a disappointment in their mind. Offensively, based on what happened last week, they knew that they did not give the ball to Bijan Robinson enough on the ground, and it was pretty apparent that they were trying to move the ball on the ground. Not just in the fact that Bijan Robinson had over 150 yards from scrimmage, but also in the fact that they only had Michael Penix throw the ball 21 times. And I think if you look at the numbers from the first half to the second half, a majority of those passes were in the first half when the game really was still in the balance. And Atlanta did an incredible job tonight of making JJ McCarthy look like a rookie quarterback. Now, it's going to kind of be the story of the Vikings these next 15 weeks, is that this is still a guy in JJ McCarthy that looks a bit like a rookie. And that's somewhat fine, I think, at least up until halfway through this year. Again, given that this is a JJ McCarthy that tore his meniscus in the first preseason game last year and didn't play at all in his rookie season. And so now this is his first chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Last year, or I should say last week against the Bears, I think maybe there was a little bit of false hope given because of that comeback win against Chicago. But honestly, with what happened today against the Lions with the Chicago Bears, I think last week almost hurts Minnesota more than it helps them because they had some of the same similar issues. I think tonight they could not get the ball to Justin Jefferson. You look at the deep shot that Justin Jefferson had at the end of the first half. It was a 50-yard completion. Outside of that, he has two completions for 31 yards. Jalen Naylor has 3 for 31. Adam Thielen has 2 for 26. And TJ Hawkinson has 1 for 12. That's a really talented receiver core. And last week for Minnesota, I think Justin Jefferson didn't have a great week either in terms of receiving. Justin Jefferson had 4 for 44. Naylor had 1 for 28. Thielen had 0 catches. Like, this is going to be an issue throwing the ball for Minnesota, I think. And part of it isn't all on JJ McCarthy. There was a third-string left tackle in the game at one point. There was a backup right tackle. There was a backup center. Like, there's backup offensive linemen in the game for Minnesota. And Atlanta took advantage of that. I think there's a couple of things going forward. If Minnesota wants to try to make the playoffs this year, if they want to see JJ McCarthy play better and lead a playoff caliber team, there's two things that need to happen on offense. One of them is that going forward, the running game needs to go through Jordan Mason. 9 carries for 30 yards tonight, but I think when you look at what his runs looked at compared to Aaron Jones, and this went back to last week as well when Jordan Mason led the team in rushing last week too, it just looks like a better product on the ground when they are running with Jordan Mason. The second thing is that JJ McCarthy needs to be on the move more. I don't think he's at a point in his development where he can sit in the pocket and make plays with his arm. There needs to be more of an emphasis on getting him outside of the pocket, whether it's rollouts, whether it's bootleg, like whatever it is. There needs to be a little bit more creativity than just do a five-step drop back and make a play. Like, there needs to be a little bit more creativity there, especially with an offensive line that is this decimated. They came into the game with a backup left tackle. They came into the game with backup offensive linemen. And they didn't adjust, even after Atlanta sacked JJ McCarthy 6 times. There were some big plays that I think Atlanta came back from. Drake London fumbled the ball early in the first half. He came back and had 2 really good catches in the fourth quarter that kind of iced the game. Defensively, they got contributions defensively from every single one of their rookies. Jalen Walker and James Pierce each had a sack. Billy Bowman had an interception. Xavier Watts had the game-ending interception. You look at Parker Romo coming in. He goes 5 for 5 on field goals. He kicks another extra point in. I would almost guarantee NFC Special Teams Player of the Week is going to be Parker Romo with his performance tonight. But the star of the show tonight was easily Bijan Robinson. And you can say the running game as a whole, too, because Bijan Robinson had 22 carries for 143 yards. He tossed in another 4 or 3 catches for 25 yards. Tyler Algier had 16 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. This offense ran for over 215 yards tonight against the Minnesota defense that up front with Javon Hargrave and with Jonathan Grenard. I know they were down Andrew Van Ginkel tonight, but this is a defense that up front is really good. Jonathan Allen in there. Dallas Turner is a first rounder. This is a good defense that they ran for this many yards against. And this team, I think, knows what they want to be a little bit more than Minnesota does. Atlanta wants to run the ball. Atlanta wants to keep the ball on the ground. And they were able to execute that plan better than Minnesota was able to execute theirs tonight. Now, moving forward for Atlanta, they move to 1-1 on the season. They go to Carolina next week. Carolina, a team right now that is a bit down in the dumps. Bryce Young put the ball in the air a lot today, and they almost had an incredible comeback against Arizona. But Carolina is still just not there yet, it seems like. So this seems like a good time for Atlanta to try to get that second win under their belt, keep up with Tampa Bay in the race for the NFC South, and see just how good, honestly, of a game that Bijan Robinson can have. Because I think today against Arizona, James Conner really didn't run the ball a lot. But if you tried to run the ball against Carolina, I think they can kind of be had on the ground. Against Jacksonville, Travis Etienne ran for over 140 yards. And I see that more of a possibility than Bijan Robinson getting less than 40 yards rushing. I think that's way more predictable. Now for Minnesota, this is a tough way to start their home schedule. And they do have Cincinnati coming to Minnesota next week. Cincinnati lost Joe Burrow today, but Cincinnati still ended up beating the Jacksonville Jaguars, even with a 3-interception game from Jake Browning in relief, even without 50 yards running from their top back, even without getting a sack on Trevor Lawrence until the final play of the game. Cincinnati is going to be a team that's honestly, I think they're just not going to care about defense. Unless it's getting a sack or unless it's getting an interception or a forced fumble, I just don't think they're going to care what happens anymore. And that's why I think we saw such a high-scoring game today, even without Joe Burrow in there, because Jake Browning is still going to push the ball down the field. He still has Jamar Chase. He still has T. Higgins. And they're just going to push it and see what happens. And this might be the type of team that Minnesota could actually keep up with. I don't think Minnesota's going to have as many issues protecting as they did today, considering how much talent and how much investment in that talent Atlanta has done in these past couple of years, both through the draft and both through free agency, Cincinnati is nowhere close to that. So I feel like Minnesota has a better chance of winning that game than they did tonight. I still don't see them winning the game, but I would be interested to see, or I am going to be interested to see, how that game plays out next week between Minnesota and Cincinnati. This video is either going up same night as the Minnesota-Atlanta game, or it's going to go up in the morning, and then there's going to be another video hopefully soon about the Rams and Titans. I was going to do that before tonight's game, but this felt better, and it felt easier for me to talk about this game after it happened. So I'll try to get the Rams-Titans video up soon, but until then, I'll see you next time.